Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our third annual TEDx event here at the Anglo-American School of Sofia. It is a pleasure to see you all here today. My name is Mimosa, and this is Nasco, and we will be your hosts for the duration of this event.
The students whose talks you're going to see today have been preparing them for a couple of months now. They have gone through a rigorous process of selecting their ideas, developing their talks, and polishing them over and over again. All of our talks this year are centered around the theme of empowering change in a shifting world. They could do this thanks to the TED clubs that we organized for them during trimester 2. And now, today, they couldn't be more excited to share their ideas we're spreading with all of you.
Before we start off with our talks today, we would like to give a thank you to our sponsors for this event. First of all, we would like to thank our very own PTO for their continuous support in the organization of this event and for providing the amazing gift bags you received upon entrance.
Thank you. We would also like to give a shout out to Stereotypes Chocolate House for providing the chocolate X's that you can see in your gift bags and for providing chocolate during the break between the sessions. Stereotypes Chocolate House is an enterprise which seeks to use chocolate to cause social change. They can do a variety of things with chocolate, from creating stunning designs and corporate presents to organizing team building activities. The profit that they generate then goes to help vulnerable groups of people in our community. So let's thank Stereotypes Chocolate House for their support.
To start off our first session, we have a performance by one of our guest performers, Demeter. Demeter is a professional breakdancer, and today he is here with part of his dance crew, the Footprints crew, and some of his most promising students. Please let's welcome Demeter, the Footprints, and some of their students.
Като се бори сам за нещо, като го печели, за какво го печели тогава? И човек непрекъснато трябва да се сродява с хората, с които живее. Ние никой не знаем кой човек върви и иде по пътя на среща ни. Кого ще срещнем по пътя си и кого ще настигнем по пътя си.
Thank you to Demeter and the Footprints crew. Next up, we have Yana. Yana is our first speaker today. She was born and raised in Sofia, and both her parents are Bulgarian. She speaks fluently Bulgarian, English, and French, and she is currently learning Spanish. She's a new student here at AES. This is her first year. She enjoys traveling, visiting new places, meeting new people, writing, learning new things, and daydreaming. She's very motivated and devoted to achieve her main goal, to make everyone around her feel happy and special. She also believes that every single little thing in our lives matter. So let's welcome Yana, that's going to show us why.
So before I start this talk, I want us to take a few moments to do something that I bet most people don't do on a regular basis. We're going to watch the stars. Enjoy. So how many of you do that for, let's say, 10 minutes, at least once a week? Raise your hands. Not a lot of people. So you see, not a lot of people take the time to enjoy small things like watching the stars, for example, in their busy everyday lives. So I wanted to make sure that you can watch them now, as you probably won't be able to do so in the future. So let me explain. So the first thing is that, as we all know, the universe is expanding and everything is slowly moving away from us. Scientists say that in about 4 billion years, the night sky will go from this to this. Horrible, I know. Another thing is light and air pollution, which are slowly but surely starting to hide the night sky from us. Light pollution is, according to the Oxford Dictionary, brightening of the night skies caused by street lights or other man-made sources, which has a disruptive effect on natural cycles and inhibits the observations of stars and planets. And air pollution is, again according to the Oxford Dictionary, the presence in or introduction into the environment of a substance which has poisonous or harmful effects. So because of light pollution, the sky has become brighter, and we all know that stars cannot shine without darkness, right? And some other countries also have an extremely high level of air pollution. For example, one of our teachers, Miss Padachi, she's my English teacher, she once told us in class that when she lived in Shanghai for 7 years, she never ever saw a single star in the night sky because of the extremely high level of air pollution. And I guess it's only a matter of time before industrialization takes over and hides this beauty from our eyes. So I'm telling you all that because I want you to know that you're extremely lucky to be able to see all that. And you're not even appreciating it. But then, if stars are so important, why don't we watch them? And I know. It's because we're all busy. I mean, come on, we the students, we have school until 3:30. Some of us have after-school activities, sports outside of school, private lessons, and of course, homework is always there. The teachers, they also have to plan your lessons, grade your tests, plan homeworks, write reports, and other things. And I don't even want to talk about parents, because being a parent is the hardest thing ever. You have to take care not only of yourself, but of another human being too. So I guess it's pretty safe to say that we all have busy lives, right? And that's the thing. We never really stop. We never really stop to find time to enjoy those little moments, like watching the stars, for example. And that is when we make one of our biggest mistakes. So I'm going to share a story with you. My story of how I learned to always find the time to appreciate those little moments. So when I was little, or well, when I was 9, my great-grandmother always invited me to go watch sunsets with her. But you know how it was. I was always running around, playing with friends, was always too busy or always had better things to do. And when I was 10, she passed away. And I will forever, ever regret that I didn't go watch those sunsets with her. I guess the moral of the story is that you should always remember to enjoy those little moments in your life, because you never know how long they will be there. Have you experienced a similar situation where you just want to go back in time and enjoy those little moments? Now I have. But let's get to the roots of this. Why? Why are we always in such a rush? And the answer is society. According to World Financial Review, The Economist, and other experts all around the world, we're in the middle of the fourth industrial revolution, which develops cyber-physical systems, artificial intelligences, and networks in general. So everything around us is happening fast. We get online shopping, we can get food online, we have access to information faster. And the thing is that society is pressuring you to catch up. You also have to be fast. You know what you do your whole life? You're at home, you go to school, go to work, go to university, whatever, you do your things, then you go back home, sleep and eat. And then the cycle repeats over and over and over again. Then you're always taught that you don't have time for the little things and that you should forget about them in order to meet society's expectations. But you know what? You do have time. Tons and tons and tons of time. Raise your hands if you've ever come across this sentence. Time is working against you. Or if you've ever said, I never have time to do anything. Most of you. But I want to tell you that you do have time. Imagine this. Try to think of your most distant memory, like your very, very first one. I personally remember I was little and I was really sick, and me and my mom, we were in this hotel room and she was giving me medicine. So it wasn't my best memory, but I guess it was my first one. So now try to think of all the time that has passed from this memory until now. You sitting here listening to my TED Talk. For me personally, that's a lot of time and I'm only 13. So now, if you're an adult, you're probably going to live 1.5, 2, or even 3 times this time period, as the average lifespan of a person is 80 years. And if you're a child, 7 to even 8 times. You see, you do have time, but the problem is that society tells you you don't. And then you get used to forgetting about the little things. And that is when you make one of your biggest mistakes that you'll forever, ever regret. Because at the very end, you won't care about how much money you've got, how many apartments you have, or how many hours you've worked. But you'll remember those times that you went to that favorite coffee shop with your best friend. Because it's the little things that truly make you happy. And unfortunately, the things that we're always taught we don't have time for. So now, to finish everything, I just want to tell you that you should always, always remember to just stop. Stop whatever you're doing. And enjoy those little moments in your life, because you never know how long they will be there. After all, I was never able to watch those sunsets again, and I will forever regret it. Please, please don't repeat the same mistake that I did. And please, take at least 10 minutes tonight to watch the stars. Thank you. Who's now?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are having some technical difficulties, which we are very sorry about. If you could be patient with us for about 2 minutes so that we can fix the screen, we will resume the event. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for your patience and apologies again for the technical difficulties. First of all, I'd like to say thank you to Yana for showing us how the little things in life truly do matter. Our next speaker is Victoria. Victoria was born in Sofia. Her mother is Bulgarian and her father is Belgian. She has lived her whole life in Bulgaria but tends to travel a lot during breaks. Victoria is fluent in English, Bulgarian, and French. Her parents' work includes the distribution and preparation of food, so her whole life she has been around food. You know, cooking, eating, everything. We have to eat food 3 times a day, and we spend most of our time thinking about it or eating it. In an ever-changing world, new foods appear all the time, and each ones have different chemical components. But which ones truly make us happy? Today, Victoria will answer that question for us. Please welcome Victoria.
Students, how many times a day do you pass by the cafeteria? Adults, how many times do you pass by the supermarket next to your workplace? 2, 5, maybe 10 times? Or how about when you're at the food court, at the mall? Do you go and buy a quick McDonald's burger? Or do you go to the healthy smoothie stand? Think about when you're faced with a choice of satisfying your short-term craving versus holding out for a long-term goal. Think carefully next time, because scientists have discovered that certain foods make you feel happier, while some make you feel tired, lazy, and down. Who here has recently eaten pizza? Raise your hands. All right, many of you. I bet you have felt really satisfied after immediately eating the pizza, but later on, you have felt really tired and lazy for the rest of the day. Or who here has recently eaten chocolate and felt really satisfied and uplifted? There we go. Well, there are 2 chemicals in our body that trigger the neurotransmitters in our brain that decide what mood we have. Well, the first chemical is dopamine. Dopamine, as some of you may know, is the feel-good hormone that dictates our mood very largely. So, dopamine, when there are small quantities of it in your body, you might have mood swings, low motivation, fatigue, and you'll be at risk of depression. Well, if you have healthy levels of dopamine, you'll be motivated, you'll have healthy sleep patterns, and you'll be very happy. So now, you may ask yourself, so how do I raise my dopamine levels? Well, if we start off by proteins, they can raise your dopamine levels largely, such as eggs and meat. Although, if you're vegetarian or vegan, like today's society is mostly, we can see that you can raise your dopamine levels through a simple fruit bowl salad made of apples, watermelon, bananas, and almonds. Also, if we look at the building block of dopamine, L-theanine, that acts as a relaxation factor, we can find it in everyday green tea. Also, magnesium, that is mostly found in salads and greens, will also raise your dopamine levels. However, the good news is, if you do not like salads, you can eat nuts and chocolate. Also, vitamins B5 and B6, most found in bananas, rice, and chicken, will also raise your dopamine levels. And finally, vitamin D, most commonly gotten through the sunlight, will also raise dopamine levels. I'm sure that many of us, on a sunny beach day with the sand in our feet and the waves crashing in front of us, have felt really satisfied and uplifted. Otherwise, on a dark, cold winter day, we have felt really tired and sloppy, and also we were sad that we didn't see the sun. Well, that's the work of dopamine. So the second chemical is serotonin. Serotonin is 95% in our guts, and it is released from our guts to our brain. And with this connection, we can see that truly we are what we eat. Now, serotonin, if there are low levels of it, you will be lack of motivation, you will have irregular sleep patterns, and you'll be at risk of depression. But on the good side, if you have healthy levels of serotonin in your body, you will feel relaxed while still maintaining your energy levels. This relaxation factor of serotonin can be felt even 30 minutes after eating. Serotonin can be released from our gut to our brain with carbs, such as pasta, pizza, and pretzels, which makes carbs so addictive. Also, if you're on a diet, you can eat sweet potatoes, apples, carrots, and blueberries. Now, if we look at the building block of serotonin, tryptophan, we will see that chicken, eggs, cheese, turkey, beans, lentils, tunas, vegetables, fruits, nuts, and chocolate are what will raise your serotonin levels. Now, I have been talking about foods that make you feel happy, but what about foods that make you feel down? Who here has recently eaten hamburgers? Raise your hand. Okay. Or indulged in fresh donuts. Now, foods, foods that are high in MSG, salt, sugar, oil, and carbohydrates are unhealthy for us. But have you thought about how they affect your mood? Well, unsurprisingly, you might have felt an immediate happiness response after eating those foods. But afterwards, a couple of hours later, you might have felt tired, sloppy, and, well, unmotivated to do anything. Now, a health coach, Carrie Axelrod, says these types of foods send your blood sugar on a roller coaster and puts you at risk of mood swings and depression. One day, a friend of mine was left alone with his brother for a full 3 days, and they decided that they will feast on junk food, and mostly fries, for breakfast and dinner. Now, immediately after eating those types of foods, they felt really satisfied and happy. But in reality, after the full 3 days, they felt really tired, unmotivated to do anything, and their faces were full of acne. Now, if that's not proof enough that these types of food make you feel down, then I don't know what is. So, I have been talking to you a lot about foods, and I've been throwing out information at you, and you might ask yourself, so what am I supposed to eat now? Well, if you look at the Venn diagram behind me, you'll see that on the red side, there are foods that raise your serotonin levels, while on the blue side, there are foods that raise your dopamine levels, and in the middle, foods that raise both serotonin and dopamine. Now, the only thing I can tell you is you are what you eat, as well as how you feel. Changing your diet slightly to improve your mood positively is not such a big change. But in reality, it is quite easy to feel happier. And so in a world where everything's moving fast and you have to be constantly up to date and there's many aspects that can make you feel angry, tired, and unmotivated, changing this small thing in your diet can result in a positive mood. And I encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria, for this great talk. I mean, who would have thought that eating more chocolate would make us happier? Next up, we'd like to share a talk by Sean Acher, who is not one of our students. Unfortunately, he's actually much older than a student. But his talk explores a very interesting branch of psychology, and he shows how we should always strive to be anything but average. You see, he digs deep into the idea of positive psychology, and he describes this type of mind shift that we need to experience in order to feel happier and be more successful. So, ladies and gentlemen, enjoy The Happy Secret to Better Work. Turn the lights on. Where's that?
When I was 7 years old and my sister was just 5 years old, we were playing on top of a bunk bed. I was 2 years older than my sister at the time. I mean, I'm 2 years older than her now, but at the time that meant she had to do everything that I wanted to do, and I wanted to play war. So we were up on top of our bunk beds, and on one side of the bunk bed I had put out all my G.I. Joe soldiers and weaponry, and on the other side were all my sister's Milos and ponies and ready for a cavalry charge. There are differing accounts of what actually happened that afternoon, but since my sister is not here with us today, let me tell you the true story. Which is my sister is a little bit on the clumsy side, and somehow, without any help or push from her older brother at all, suddenly Amy disappeared off of the top of the bunk bed and landed with us crash on the floor. And I nervously peered over the side of the bed to see what had befallen my fallen sister, and saw that she had landed painfully on her hands and knees on all fours on the ground. I was nervous because my parents had charged me with making sure that my sister and I played as safely and as quietly as possible. And seeing as how I had accidentally broken Amy's arm just 1 week before, heroically pushing her out of the way of an oncoming imaginary sniper bullet, for which I have yet to be thanked, I was trying as hard as I could She didn't even see it coming. I was trying as hard as I could to be on my best behavior, and I saw my sister's face this wail of pain and suffering and surprise, threatening to erupt from her mouth and threatening to wake my parents from the long winter's nap for which they had settled. So I did the only thing my little frantic 7-year-old brain could think to do to avert this tragedy. If you have children, you've seen this hundreds of times before. I said, Amy, wait, don't cry, don't cry. Did you see how you landed? No human lands on all fours like that. Amy, I think this means you're a unicorn. Now that was cheating, because there's nothing in the world my sister would want more than not to be Amy the hurt 5-year-old little sister, but Amy the special unicorn. Of course, this was an option that was open to her brain at no point in the past. And you could see on my poor, manipulated sister's face conflict. As her little brain attempted to devote resources to feeling the pain and suffering, surprise she just experienced, or contemplating her newfound identity as a unicorn. And the latter won out. Instead of crying, instead of ceasing our play, instead of waking my parents with all the negative consequences that would have ensued for me, instead, a smile spread across her face, and she scrambled right back up onto the bunk bed with all the grace of a baby unicorn. With one broken leg. What we stumbled across at this tender age of just 5 and 7, we had no idea at the time, was something that was going to be at the vanguard of a scientific revolution occurring 2 decades later in the way that we look at the human brain. What we had stumbled across is something called positive psychology, which is the reason that I'm here today and the reason that I wake up every morning. When I first started talking about this research outside of academia, out with companies and schools, the very first thing they said to never do is to start your talk with a graph. The very first thing I wanted to do is start my talk with a graph. This graph looks boring, but this graph is the reason that I get excited and wake up every morning. And this graph doesn't even mean anything. It's fake data. What we found is if I got this data back studying you here in the room, I would be thrilled, because there's very clearly a trend that's going on there, and that means that I can get published, which is all that really matters. The fact that there's one weird red dot that's up above the curve, there's one weird in the room, you know who you are, I saw you earlier. That's no problem. That's no problem, as most of you know, because I can just delete that dot. I can delete that dot because that's clearly a measurement error, and we know that's a measurement error because it's messing up my data. So one of the very first things that we teach people in economics and statistics and business and psychology courses is how, in a statistically valid way, do we eliminate the weirdos? How do we eliminate the outliers? So that we can find the line of best fit, which is fantastic if I'm trying to find out how many Advil the average person should be taking, too. But if I'm interested in potential, if I'm interested in your potential, or for happiness, or productivity, or energy, or creativity, what we're doing is we're creating the cult of the average with science. If I ask a question like, how fast can a child learn how to read in a classroom? Scientists change the answer to, how fast does the average child learn how to read in that classroom? And then we tailor the class right towards the average. Now, if you fall below the average on this curve, then psychologists get thrilled, because that means you're either depressed, or you have a disorder, or hopefully both. We're hoping for both, because our business model is if you come into a therapy session with one problem, we want to make sure you leave knowing you have 10. So you'll keep coming back over and over again. We'll go back into your childhood if necessary, but eventually what we want to do is to make you normal again. But normal is merely average. And what I posit, and what positive psychology posits, is that if we study what is merely average, we will remain merely average. That instead of deleting those positive outliers, what I intentionally do is come into a population like this one and says, why? Why is it that some of you are so high above the curve in terms of your intellectual ability, athletic ability, musical ability, creativity, energy levels, your resiliency in the face of challenge, your sense of humor? Whatever it is, instead of deleting you, what I want to do is study you. Because maybe we can glean information, not just how to move people up to the average, but how we can move the entire average up at our companies and schools worldwide. The reason this graph is important to me is when I turn on the news, it seems like the majority of the information is not positive. In fact, it's negative. Most of it's about murder, corruption, diseases, natural disasters, and very quickly, my brain starts to think that's the accurate ratio of negative to positive in the world. What that's doing is creating something called the medical school syndrome, which if you know people who have been to medical school during the first year of medical training, as you read through a list of all the symptoms and diseases that could happen, suddenly you realize you have all of them. I have a brother-in-law named Bobo, which is a whole other story. Bobo married Amy the unicorn. Bobo called me on the phone from Yale Medical School. And Bobo said, Sean, I have leprosy. Which even at Yale is extraordinarily rare. But I had no idea how to console poor Bobo because he had just gotten over an entire week of menopause. See, what we're finding is it's not necessarily the reality that shapes us, but the lens through which your brain views the world that shapes your reality. And if we can change the lens, not only can we change your happiness, we can change every single educational and business outcome at the same time. When I applied to Harvard, I applied on a dare. I didn't expect to get in, and my family had no money for college. When I got a military scholarship 2 weeks later, they allowed me to go. Suddenly, something that wasn't even a possibility became a reality. When I went there, I assumed everyone else would see it as a privilege as well, that they'd be excited to be there. Even if you're in a classroom full of people smarter than you, you'd be happy just to be in that classroom, which is what I felt. But what I found there is while some people experienced that, when I graduated after my 4 years and then spent the next 8 years living in the dorms with the students, Harvard asked me to. Wasn't that guy. But what happened, I was an officer of Harvard to counsel students through the difficult 4 years, and what I found in my research and my teaching is that these students, no matter how happy they were with their original success of getting into the school, 2 weeks later, their brains were focused not on the privilege of being there, nor on their philosophy or their physics. Their brain was focused on the competition, the workload, the hassles, the stresses, the complaints. When I first went in there, I walked into the freshman dining hall, which is where my friends from Waco, Texas, which is where I grew up, I know some of you have heard of it. When they come to visit me, they look around, they say, this freshman dining hall looks like something out of Hogwarts from the movie Harry Potter, which it does. This is Hogwarts from the movie Harry Potter, and that's Harvard. And when they see this, they say, Sean, why do you waste your time studying happiness at Harvard? Seriously, what does a Harvard student possibly have to be unhappy about? Embedded within that question is the key to understanding the science of happiness. Because what that question assumes is that our external world is predictive of our happiness levels. When in reality, if I know everything about your external world, I can only predict 10% of your long-term happiness. 90% of your long-term happiness is predicted not by the external world, but by the way your brain processes the world. And if we change it, if we change our formula for happiness and success, what we can do is change the way that we can then affect reality. What we found is that only 25% of job successes are predicted by IQ. 75% of job successes are predicted by your optimism levels, your social support, and your ability to see stress as a challenge instead of as a threat. I talked to a boarding school up in New England, probably the most prestigious boarding school, and they said, we already know that. So every year, instead of just teaching our students, we also have a wellness week, and we're so excited. Monday night, we have the world's leading expert coming in to speak about adolescent depression. Tuesday night is school violence and bullying. Wednesday night's eating disorders, Thursday night is illicit drug use, and Friday night we're trying to decide between risky sex or happiness. I said that's most people's Friday nights. Which I'm glad you liked, but they did not like that at all. Silence on the phone. And into the silence, I said, I'd be happy to speak at your school, but just so you know, that's not a wellness week, that's a sickness week. What you've done is you've outlined all the negative things that can happen, but not talked about the positive. The absence of disease is not health. Here's how we get to health. We need to reverse the formula for happiness and success. In the past 3 years, I've traveled to 45 different countries, working with schools and companies in the midst of an economic downturn. And what I found is that most companies and schools follow a formula for success, which is this: if I work harder, I'll be more successful. And if I'm more successful, then I'll be happier. That undergirds most of our parenting styles, our managing styles, the way that we motivate our behavior, and the problem is it's scientifically broken and backwards for 2 reasons. First, every time your brain has a success, you just change the goalpost of what success looked like. You got good grades, now you have to get better grades. You got into a good school, now you have to get a better school. You got a good job, now you have to get a better job. You hit your sales target, we're going to change your sales target. And if happiness is on the opposite side of success, your brain never gets there. What we've done is we've pushed happiness over the cognitive horizon as a society. And that's because we think we have to be successful, then we'll be happier. But the real problem is our brains work in the opposite order. If you can raise somebody's level of positivity in the present, then their brain experiences what we now call a happiness advantage, which is your brain at positive performs significantly better than it does at negative, neutral, or stressed. Your intelligence rises, your creativity rises, your energy levels rise. In fact, what we found is that every single business outcome improves. Your brain at positive is 31% more productive than your brain at negative, neutral, or stressed. You're 37% better at sales. Doctors are 19% faster, more accurate at coming up with the correct diagnosis when positive instead of negative, neutral, or stressed, which means we can reverse the formula. If we can find a way of becoming positive in the present, then our brains work even more successfully as we're able to work harder, faster, and more intelligently. What we need to be able to do is to reverse this formula so we can start to see what our brains are actually capable of. Because dopamine, which floods into your system when you're positive, has 2 functions. Not only does it make you happier, it turns on all the learning centers in your brain, allowing you to adapt to the world in a different way. We've found that there are ways you can train your brain to be able to become more positive. In just a 2-minute span of time, done for 21 days in a row, we can actually rewire your brain, allowing your brain to actually work more optimistically and more successfully. We've done these things in research now in every single company that I've worked with, getting them to write down 3 new things that they're grateful for 21 days in a row, 3 new things each day, and at the end of it, their brain starts to retain a pattern And finally, random acts of kindness or conscious acts of kindness. We get people, when they open up their inbox, to write one positive email, praising or thanking somebody in their social support network. And by doing these activities, and by training your brain, just like we train our bodies, what we found is we can reverse the formula for happiness and success, and in doing so, not only create ripples of positivity, but create a real revolution. Thank you very much.
We hope you enjoyed that little bit of informational yet comic relief. Our next speaker is Alena. Alena was born in Fairfax County, Virginia, in the United States. She has lived in Virginia, Texas, Syria, and Bulgaria. Alena has 2 older sisters and a younger brother. She enjoys baking, watching 50s, 60s, and 70s sitcoms, and spending time with her family. Alena hopes to pursue a career working with children. She hopes that she will make a positive difference wherever life may take her. Alena chose the concept of being too polite for her talk today because it is something she has struggled with growing up. She hopes by educating people about the weakness of being too polite, people will be able to identify and stop this problem. Please welcome Alena.
Today I'm going to make you question everything your parents taught you. Okay, not everything. But first, let's play a little game. Raise your hand if you were taught these lessons. Don't talk back. A lot of you, be the better person. Same result? Or maybe you came across the phrase, 2 wrongs don't make a right? Okay. Though all these things are true, you can go too far with them. Lack of confidence, not standing up for yourself, and self-criticism are all results of taking these topics too far, or being too polite. An example of a person who's too polite might be a student who gets picked on, but doesn't want to be rude or tattletale. This person is not standing up for themselves, and over time, this could hurt them. If he or she has learned the expression, turn the other cheek, they might try to ignore what's happening, but you can't ignore what's happening forever. When we teach our kids these lessons, we need to teach them where to draw the line between talking back, standing up for yourself, and turning the other cheek. Now that you know that being too polite can hurt you, let's clarify what the difference between being polite and being overly polite is. When you're the right amount of polite, you think of others, but not to the point where you're somehow hurting yourself. I know it's good to be selfless, but being selfless and not taking care of yourself are 2 different things. Now, before you do something kind, think, will this hurt me? And if so, is it worth it? It's always good to be kind to others, but first, be kind to yourself, because no one wants to suffer the consequences of being too polite. The first one, and the most obvious, is you get pushed around. If you never share your opinions, you'll end up going along with what other people say, even if you don't agree. The second thing that may happen is you'll occasionally burst and start to act out. When you're too polite, you hold in all your negative feelings, and they start to build up. But eventually, you have to let them all out. And I think you know where it goes from there. I think you know where it goes from there. It might be hard for you to imagine your most polite friend going home and just bursting with stress and anger, but who knows? There's a strong possibility. Last but not least, you tend to blame yourself more. I know what you're thinking, and I thought the same thing. I mean, how can being too polite make you self-criticize? Well, here's the answer. When you're too polite, you don't want to blame other people. A minor example of this is, it's not your fault, it's mine. Self-criticism is a big issue, but I'm sure you can find another TED Talk on that. Self-criticism, being pushed around, and sudden bursts of stress and anger are all consequences of being too polite. As we move into the future, social media has become such a big part of our lives, and another outlet for people to attack us. As this continues to happen in our world, we need to empower our voice to stand up for ourselves, because being too polite can be a roadblock and blur the lines of our personal boundaries. Now, how many people have that somewhat annoying friend who's always apologizing for things they didn't do or can't control? To be honest, sometimes that's me, but it could be a sign I'm being too polite. I'm going to share with you 3 signs you're being too polite. The first one I already mentioned. Yeah, I know, annoying. The second one is for those of you who have worked in a group, and we all have one time or another. There's usually someone who doesn't share their opinions and just kind of goes along with whatever. There may be other reasons why a person could do this, but it could be a sign they're being too polite. The next thing that may happen, the next sign is you feel pressure to say yes. You feel pressure to say yes. I have this problem, and it's the worst. Elena, can you get my notebook? Can you buy me something from the cafeteria? And it just goes on and on. But people who are too polite just can't say no. So, if you do any of these things, it's a sure sign you might be too polite. Now, I want to share with you a story. But first, to understand the story, we have to go back 7 years to when I learned the lesson that you shouldn't talk back. Now, this is something everyone learns. But now come back to the present and listen how what the lesson I learned affected how I made the choice, how I decided not to stand up for myself. Now, a teacher had made an incorrect assumption about me. Needless to say, this upset me and even made me cry. When I got home that day, I told my mom. She asked me why I didn't stand up for myself or say anything. I told her it was because I didn't want to be rude and talk back. That day, I learned an important lesson. You can stand up for yourself and still be polite. Now, I know standing up for yourself isn't easy, so I'm going to share with you 3 ways to teach your kid or yourself to be assertive and respectful. The first thing, it's very important to learn and talk about your boundaries, emotional, physical, legal, and more. Because learning about your boundaries is basically learning where to draw the line. Even if you don't know how to do it in that specific situation, practicing how to restrict yourself in general will still help. It's also very important to understand why assertiveness, along with being respectful, is important. If you do, you not only see it's important, but understand why. Last but not least, it's important to teach your kid or yourself to follow through. If you or your kid says no to a bully or anything of the sort, but doesn't follow through, you're only showing the bully you don't mean what you say. To teach a kid how to do this, as a parent, you have to do it yourself. If you take away a privilege such as TV time or hang out with friends, stick to it or unknowingly teach your kid not to follow through, taking away a skill of being assertive and respectful. Now, a lot of parents complain when their kids talk back to them, but as long as they don't yell and whine, they could be setting themselves up for a drug and alcohol-free teenage life. When a kid says no to their parents, it's easier for them to say no to the negative pressures in life. Not only does it do this, but helps with future disagreements with friends, peers, and colleagues. So, don't teach your kids to never say no, but to be calm and persuasive while disagreeing. And if throughout this talk you realize you are one of the people who is too polite, don't worry, it's not your fault, it's your parents.
Thank you, Elena, for reminding us how to be assertive in life. Our next speaker is Nina. She was born in Skopje, Macedonia, but she was raised here in Sofia. She moved here in 2010, and she has been a part of AAS since 2011. She is fluent in Macedonian. She speaks a bit of French, but prefers to speak mainly in English. She enjoys basketball, riding, and cycling. Yana believes that we should help people for the sake of helping people, rather than because of their gender. So today, she'll try to introduce to you a new concept of helpfulness. So let's welcome Nina and her talk, To Be a Gentle Person.
We humans have the tendency of looking at things differently when we shouldn't. But what do I mean? We have been dealing with gender stereotypes for centuries, and it has become a part of our lives in one way or another. So a term that the public likes to use is the word gentleman. But what does this word mean? According to the dictionary, the word gentleman means a chivalrous, courteous, or honorable man. So I hope we're all familiar with it. Now, something for a gentleman to do is to open the door for a lady, something you've probably heard or seen before. Something that I see today is that males tend to open these doors for females just because they're females in the whole chivalry act. But I wouldn't want to believe that. I mean, I wouldn't want to believe that a male is only helping a female because he thinks he must, instead of just helping her for the common good. A lot of people in society think this way. They think that males are the stronger sex, therefore they must help the female. This type of chivalry goes way back into history itself. A lot of your grandparents, or even parents, including mine, believe that the reason males should always help females is because the male is the stronger one. Take my grandfather, for example. He always helps my grandma, but it's not for a reason of kindness in such a way. He helps her because back in their house, they were taught as young boys and girls that the man opens the door for the female. So this chivalry was practiced since the 19th century and is still a big thing being practiced today, which is why we see it so often. But in the same way that males think they must do certain things for females, just because they're males, conversely, there are females who reject these acts only because it is coming from a male. They might jump to the conclusion that the male is only doing this because they see them as the weaker gender, not because they see them as a person. When getting asked for help by a male, the female might take it completely in a different way and might jump to the conclusion that they're only doing that for those reasons instead of just taking their help, when sometimes we just should. So where am I going with this? When a man asks to open the door for a female, it should be out of kindness. And in the position of the lady, we should be able to take this help because sometimes it is just out of kindness. If you recall, earlier in my speech, I had said, we humans have the tendency of seeing things differently when we shouldn't be. So, like I said, when a man wants to help a woman, it should be out of kindness and generosity. So, instead of having these names, gentleman or lady, we could have something different. We could be gentle people. So, what is a gentle person, you might ask? Well, like I said earlier, the definition of a gentleman was a chivalrous, courteous, or honorable man. Why can't we all be that? And just like a lady, a woman of good social position. So let's be both of those things. But let's not split ourselves into these groups just based on gender. Let's be gentle people, referring to ourselves as all instead of having to split ourselves into these groups. So I'm going to leave with this. Whatever your gender might be, whatever age you might be, whoever you may be, just open the door and be kind. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina. We should all strive to be gentle people, as kindness should be continuous. Our next speaker is Peter. Peter was born in Varna, Bulgaria. He has lived in Bulgaria for most of his life, except in the 2 years that he spent in Switzerland. He is fluent in English, Bulgarian, Russian, and French. He developed a deep interest in music from a young age, learning to play both the guitar and drums. His curiosity further led him to explore the current-day pop music and how it is developing. After flipping through the local radio stations, Peter realized that a lot of the pop music that we listen to sounds the same. This encouraged him to research the homogenization of current pop music and discover the main cause behind the lack of diversity that we face. In his talk today, Peter will explore how we can identify this homogenization and break this cycle of repetitiveness. Please welcome Peter.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So we're going to start out with a little activity to get us into a musical mindset. I'm going to play a couple of famous instrumentals from recent pop music, and your job is you have to guess what the name of the artist is and which song is being played. Don't worry, I will call on you. So, do you have any guesses? You can put your hands up. Yes. By who? And? All right, good job. I'll give it to you guys. Let's hear the next one. Anyone? Ooh, I got you with this one. This is Natural by Imagine Dragons. Anyone? No one? All right. This is Bad Blood by Taylor Swift. So good job to everyone that did guess a few of the songs. And if you didn't, I wouldn't blame you at all, because contemporary pop music has actually begun to sound all the same. And that is exactly what I call the pop bubble. A pop bubble is an imaginary space in which sounds, artists, and musicians have actually become confined in, repeating, recurring, and regurgitating over and over again. As a musician myself, I begin to wonder, how come this occurs? I mean, after all, there are more people on this earth, there are definitely more musicians than before, we have new technology, so how come music begins to sound all the more similar? Before we explore how this occurs, before we explore why this occurs, we should first learn how the pop bubble functions. Now, a study done by the Spanish National Research Council has actually revealed that the harmonic complexity and timbral diversity of pop music has decreased over the past 50 years, whereas the loudness has increased. And it is shown that in the 1960s, the harmonic complexity and timbral diversity actually peaked. So in simple terms, harmonic complexity is basically the complexity of the melody, and the timbral diversity is basically how diverse and how various the texture of the song is. And as you know, as you see, the loudness has actually increased. It's quite self-explanatory. Well, in the end, and unironically, it has become all about that bass. Music is definitely not better, but definitely louder. And most of this can be attributed to the current loudness war going on between producers in the pop industry. Through the tools of mastering and compression, they're able to achieve a much louder overall recording of the audio. How this is done is through dynamic range compression. Essentially, what they do is they take the lowest sounding part of the recording and they boost it up to match the loudest part of the recording. What this gives us is a more homogenized and similar sounding product, but yet louder. And in the end, what happens is we sacrifice the quality, the nuance, and the richness of a song in order to have a much louder product that we will hear. And I will explain later on why this is done. But carrying on, this trend can also be seen in the lyrics of current pop music. Pop music has actually become more homogenized with the lyrics itself, and actually it has become much simpler over the years. So taking a look at this graph behind me, you can see how the lyrics complexity has actually dropped over the past few years. And in the short time period, it has dropped from around 3rd grade level to around 2nd grade level. Now, the Spanish Research Council has actually also confirmed this, revealing that the current grade level of lyrics in pop music is around 2nd to 3rd grade level, which is quite shocking. But let me give you some examples. Now, it's quite obvious why this is happening, and I'm sure you have noticed the general trend, how lyrics has become more repetitive, and especially the chorus and the hook of the song. Now, the chorus and the hook of the song are essentially the elements that are supposed to grab your attention and make the song stick in your mind for a longer period. Also, these elements are actually introduced much earlier on in the song. So let's look at a few examples. This is a recent one by Ariana Grande, Thank You Next. She repeats the phrase "thank you next" 27 times throughout the song, which is quite impressive. Or we could take a look at All About That Bass by Meghan Trainor. She repeats the phrase "I'm all about that bass" 39 times throughout the song. Now, I know these are extreme examples, but I'm sure you can understand the general trend. Even more, you might say, so what, pop music has gotten a bit more repetitive. That's just the way the music is. That's just the genre of pop. And you would say, the musicians aren't necessarily less talented. I mean, they are writing and producing their own songs. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but that is not the case as well. Because actually the producers and the songwriters have also become confined within the pop bubble and have reduced to a smaller number of people. In fact, much of the pop music being written today is done only by a few people. And behind me you can see the two men that are accountable for a large portion of the pop hits being produced nowadays and over the past 10 years. Here we have Mr. Max Martin and Lucas Gottwald. These two men have numerous chart-topping songs, as I will show in a few moments, and they account also for many of the current pop stars we have in the industry. So if we look, these are only the songs written by Max Martin in the past decade, and it is quite impressive, and I'm sure you will recognize many of these songs. Even more, you'll probably recognize a few artists that you actually enjoy. We have artists such as Britney Spears, Katy Perry, a lot of Taylor Swift, and I'm sure you can recognize many of these songs. Going on to Lucas Gottwald's list, these are the #1 songs that he has co-written and produced. And it's quite astounding. So now that we understand and we have a sense of how the pop bubble works, we begin to question why. And in the end, I have come to realize that it has nothing to do with the amount of talented musicians we have or the creativity that we have right nowadays. In fact, it all comes down to a simple risk assessment in business. Now, you probably know that change equals risk, and usually higher risk would equal a higher reward. But that is not necessarily true within the music industry. In fact, it is quite the opposite in the pop industry, because it actually relies on the power of familiarity, which I will explain a bit later on. But currently, it costs around $500,000 to $3 million to establish a pop artist within the industry. If that was me, I would never make such a big investment on blind faith, would you? Probably not. And this is where the power of familiarity comes. How can we guarantee that a product put out there will be liked by the public? How do we minimize the risk and guarantee our return as a producer? Well, we rely on something called the power of familiarity, or also known as the mere exposure effect. It is a psychological phenomenon in which the more familiar you become with something, a sound or a person, and the more you see it, the more likely you are to begin to like it. So let me give you an example of this. Think back to the first time you heard Gangnam Style or any other pop song of the kind. Be honest with yourself. Did you truly like it and enjoy it the first time you heard it? Or were you a little bit confused? Personally, the first time I heard Gangnam Style, I was really weirded out. I did not know what was going on in that video and why that Asian guy was just dancing around on horses and explosions behind him. But I realized that it is inevitable that I will begin to like that song because all my friends were dancing, all my friends were listening to it, and to be honest, it grew on me over time. After 2 weeks, I was dancing and singing along with the song. And this is exactly the power of familiarity, which the pop industry relies on. So, in the modern time, we are completely surrounded by technology. We can listen to music anywhere at any time. So, you can see this is a great tool and a great chance for the pop industry to actually rely on the power of familiarity and that we will begin to like their songs. After all, the more we hear it, the more we begin to like it. So, for example, I'm going down to the mall, for example. I'm riding in my car and I have the radio on. And guess what? I'm hearing the newest Taylor Swift song. And going back to the loudness war I explained in the beginning, well, I don't even really have control of the volume. Even if the song is playing on quiet volume, I can still hear the song because they have increased the dynamic range compression, guaranteeing that I will hear the sharp snapping of the snare and I'll hear the absorbing bass. Even more, going back to the hook and the chorus of the song and the increased repetitiveness, well, it is just a scientific fact that the more times I hear the hook and the chorus of the song, I will have an increased dose of dopamine being released into my body, guaranteeing that the effect is stronger every time I hear the song. So, what we have nowadays compared to the 1960s is we have the freedom of choice. We have this wide accessibility to all these tools through which we can stream music. For example, I myself have Spotify. Through Spotify, there's a recommended list of artists and songs similar to my taste which I can discover. And I encourage you to do similarly. If you go on one of these tools or any tools as such for streaming music, I'm sure you will find many new artists that you have never heard before, but you truly enjoy. And I do believe this is really important. After all, I believe in the power of music because it can make us better people. It can motivate us, it can make us reflect, it can make us more creative. So I do believe it is important to truly find the music we like. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying pop music is bad. I think pop music is great. It is energetic. It makes you want to get up and dance. And I love it. But what I am saying is that there's a plethora of music out there which we can listen to, but we don't really have the chance to on a regular basis. So I'm encouraging you to go beyond what we're being spoon-fed by the radio and the pop industry, and we actually discover the music we truly love. And in the end, I've come to realize that we have the power to pop the pop bubble. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Pop the pop bubble. I mean, what a good way to phrase it. Now it is time for us to take a short break. Speakers will be in the elementary school reception area where they have set up their breakout station. The idea behind the breakout station is to give you, our audience, the opportunity to interact with our speakers on a one-to-one level. You can ask them about their ideas in their talks, or you can get to know the speakers in session 2 much better.
There will also be some refreshments in the hallway right behind you, leading to the library. If you haven't had a chance to do so, please also take a look at our grade 12 art, which is on display in front of the library. Our next session of speakers will start in approximately 45 minutes, which should be around 3 o'clock. Both exits are open, so please feel free to go. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. welcome back. We hope you had the chance to have some interesting discussions with our students during the breakout stations. Now, we would like to continue with session number 2. So to start off our second session, we have our very own 10th graders, Matteo Androni and Tommaso Viles, who will perform Cantabile by Niccolò Paganini. Let's welcome them.
Tomas and Mateo for that magical piece. Our first speaker of the second session is Elena. Elena was born in Sofia, Bulgaria, and spent her whole life here. She is fluent in Bulgarian and English and is currently learning both German and Spanish. She's always been fascinated by the complexity of human nature. That's why she explored the topics of emotion and health, which turned out to be more connected than she expected. In her talk, Elena will present a new point of view from which we look at ourselves. Please welcome Elena.
How many of you have found yourself laying in bed, blowing your nose, coughing up your lungs at least once in your life? Raise your hand. All right. And how many of you have suddenly felt the urge to, I don't know, break a pen, smash a window, or literally scream with all the voice you've got at least once in your life? Raise your hand. All right, thank you very much. I know it may seem that those two questions are completely unrelated, but I'm here today to reveal their surprising connection. I'm going to tell you how your emotions change how your body works. We've all heard from somewhere about the devastating effects of stress on our bodies. I mean, psychologists write books it all the time. New medications appear on the shelves that are supposed to treat our sleeping disorder, migraine, anxiety, in most cases resulting from excessive amounts of stress. But we've also heard on the news about a growing number of people suffering from dangerous infections such as pneumonia, bronchitis, meningitis, all of those caused by low immunity. And we are familiar with the immense amount of medication used to treat both our stress and our low immunity, but separately. And of course, when we have either of those problems, we run to the closest pharmacy and find the answer in pills. But I want us to take it one step back and look at the origin of the problem, the cause and effect relationship between emotion and body response. So first of all, let's take a look at our surroundings. At the speed at which we live today, we need to live fast. Check the phone, read the news, stay connected, always updated, work hard, often too hard. Meet society's expectations every single day. It can be overwhelming sometimes. Because we're constantly doing something, even if it's simply scrolling through social media, which we consider as rest, our brain receives information that it needs to process, and thus never truly resting. And because we're so busy all the time, we lack this personal time just left for ourselves, our thoughts, our personal reflection. I mean, we don't really spend much time analyzing how a fight we had yesterday night affected our mood the next day. And because we lack this personal time for reflection, we often tend to fall into the trap of our own emotions, staying into angry or depressive moods for hours, days, even weeks, oblivious of the consequences this can have on our health and our body. And in general, when we think of ourselves as a whole, we tend to isolate our emotions from the series of biochemical reactions that happen inside of us, when in fact, we, as humans, are a bunch of complicated systems that seem to work well with each other in a unique way. Now, let me show you how it works. Can you all please stand up for a moment? Great. Now, you can all sit down. Do you realize what you just did? You had a conscious thought of standing up, so your brain sent signals through your neurons to your legs, so they could move in a particular way so that you could stand up. Just like this simple thought can make a body part move, every single feeling that we experience impacts a certain part of our body. In 2013, Finnish scientists conducted research from which this heat map, or also known as the body atlas, was created. Over 700 participants were shown emotional pictures, stories, words, facial expression, movies, to which they reacted, and they were supposed to record which part of their own body changed as a result of the emotion they were experiencing, meaning which parts got warmer and which ones colder. And up here, red signifies warmth and blue cold, and black is neutral. So take a moment and observe the image. And you can relate it to yourself, I'm sure. I bet all of you have been put out of your comfort zone at least once in your life. You had people tell you how much you're blushing and you felt a bit uncomfortable or ashamed. That was my case up there. And if we see up there, it is the cheeks that warm up the most when we are a bit ashamed, which is exactly blushing. And this is just one example. Think about the last time you got really angry or frustrated. Didn't you feel like your chest was on fire or your head was going to explode? Just like on the silhouette up there? You see, this body atlas just proves that whatever happens in your brain inevitably impacts your body. But the changes in temperature are just a small aspect of what actually happens inside of us when we feel a certain way. In 2003, Richard Davison, a professor of psychology and psychiatry at the University of Wisconsin, decided to conduct research on the topic of emotion and body response. With his colleagues, they designed an experiment where 52 men and women at the age of 46 were asked to recall both of their best and their worst experiences in their entire lives on paper. After this autobiographical task, they were given flu vaccines, and their antibody levels were measured after 2 weeks, 4 weeks, and 6 months. Now, a little bit of background information. The antibody levels refer to the strength of the immune system. This means that the higher the level of antibodies, meaning more antibodies, they're better at fighting diseases and infections, which means we have a stronger immunity, and vice versa. Also, during this autobiographical task, the electrical activity of the brain was measured, and more specifically, the prefrontal cortex. Or, for the duration of this talk, I'll refer to it as the PFC. The PFC is responsible for our behavior, decision-making, and even personality. So the PFC is divided into two parts, the left and the right PFC. The left PFC activates when we're joyful, experiencing positive emotions, and the right PFC when we're angry, sad, or we experience fear. So interestingly enough, during this experiment, the researchers found that the people who had the greatest activity in their right PFC, meaning when they were experiencing negative emotions, had a notably lower level of antibodies, meaning weaker immune system. And with contrast with the people who had the highest activity in the left PFC when they were experiencing happy emotions, had an increased level of antibodies, meaning their immune system got stronger. This way, the researchers found a clear link between the emotions we're experiencing and long-term effects on our immune system. So, in the end, the better the thought, the stronger the body, am I right? But why is that, you may ask? Well, the short answer is neurology and biochemistry. But let me give you a very simple example, step by step, of what actually happens inside of your body when you feel a certain way. All right, let's take sadness, for example. Actually, sadness is a tricky emotion since our brain perceives it as stress because it disrupts the normal functioning of the body the same way stress does. So when this happens, our brain releases the stress hormones adrenaline and cortisol, which prepare our bodies for immediate action. And this so-called defense mechanism was especially useful in the past for our ancestors, as when they went hunting, for example, and saw a bear approaching, they were able to run away from the danger and run fast, which ultimately saved their lives. But nowadays, the picture is a little bit different. We tend to experience stress over long periods of times, over and over again, while we continue to release those stress hormones, which actually raises our blood pressure and blood sugar. And although we may not necessarily realize it on a daily basis, this slows down our heart and actually prevents it from using its full blood pumping capacity. And this could be even fatal sometimes. In fact, in 2015, researchers from Case Western University found that high blood pressure and high blood sugar unleash destructive molecules that interfere with the body's natural defense mechanism, which is our immune system. Simply put, there is some strong evidence that negative emotions can really weaken our immune system in the long term, while positive emotions, on the other hand, really have a great impact on our immune system, making us immune to all sorts of diseases and dangerous infections, and they raise our antibody levels. Now, I'm not trying to convince you that having a constant positive attitude will make you immune to any disease. No, impossible. But the point is to understand what kind of impact we can have on ourselves on a daily basis through our emotions. Maybe next time you can ask yourself, is it really worth it thinking about the really bad moment I had last week while I re-experienced the heating in my chest or the cold in my feet? Because the speed at which we live today, life is all about appreciating the small moments that make us truly happy or thrilled. So spend time with the people you love. Find a new hobby. Ride a roller coaster. Those are the times when we heal ourselves, both metaphorically and literally. So why not create more happy moments for yourself and those around you? It's natural medicine. Thank you.
Thank you very much for Elena for sharing and showing us the strong connection between our physical and our emotional health. Next up, we have Macarena. She was born and raised in Bogota, Colombia, and she moved here in 2017. She speaks Spanish, English, and she's currently learning French. She enjoys playing sports, she enjoys meeting new people, and she also enjoys baking. She has always been interested in the inequality in today's world and how people tend to hide their prejudices behind phobias, which of course is a misrepresentation. Today, she will explore this idea and the link between stereotypes and phobias. So let's welcome Macarena.
You may have heard the word phobia, and well, you probably have a phobia. Now, let's play a little game. If you can relate to any of these phobias, raise your hand. Arachnophobia, fear of spiders. Not too many people. Claustrophobia, fear of confined places. Yeah, me too. Barophobia, fear of gravity or really tall places. A bit more, okay. Electorophobia, fear of chickens. Okay. And the one that I have a huge fear of, and I can't see anything that has this, trypophobia, fear of holes. Yeah, me too. So, you may be asking what a phobia is. Well, a phobia is an extreme or irrational fear towards something, according to the Oxford Dictionary. So, how many of you know what a paraphobia is? Okay, about 1, 2 people. Interesting. Well, I didn't know until I started my research in my TED Talk. Well, for starters, a paraphobia is this. Not the fact that there's a dog there, not the fact that there's a blanket there, the fact that there's a person there, the fact that it has the word phobia, and that means it's a fear of something. A paraphobia is a fear of poor people, of people that are less fortunate than us, and this is what we're going to talk about today. A paraphobia, for starters, is a group phobia. Group phobias are misunderstanding ways of discrimination towards someone or a group of people. For example, we humans have made a wall to defend us from what's happening, and we've created a fear for this. But think about it. Can we really have a fear of humans? They're just as people. We're all just people. Barbara Enright, an American journalist, wanted to know how it felt to live like this, how it felt to be treated this way. So in 2001, she made a social experiment for 2 months, and she worked 3 jobs at the same time. She worked as a waitress, a cleaning lady, and a Walmart employee. And her pay wage was minimal. At the end of these 2 months, she wrote a book on her experience, Nickel and Dimed. Shockingly, this book was written in 2001, and instead of decreasing, this problem with social classes has been increasing each year more. Social classes are the different types of classes that we're in. For example, if you're really popular or famous, you're in a big and tall social class. But if you're in a low and not so good social class, well, you're not in a such good social class. And we've invented these terms. This all comes to stereotypes. We get it fed every day things like, poor people are just gonna buy drugs with the money I give them, and they chose to live like that. Why should I help them? Shockingly, these people haven't been wanting to live like this. I mean, I don't know anyone that would like to live like this. Also, we also get fed words like immigrants are taking over the jobs and why should they get all the jobs and not us? They're trying to look for a better life. They don't want to ruin your job or anything. You're trying to find new opportunities to restart their life because, well, you don't know anyone's story. You don't know what they've been through, and you don't know what has happened in their head or anything like that. One of my favorite quotations is, there are hundreds of languages in the world, but a smile speaks them all. Even though we don't know who wrote this or who says this, it goes a long way because, well, you don't know anyone's story, but you know that you can smile. You don't know what anyone's been through. Actually, think about it. And one of the most important things that I always try to do is to smile. If you know me, well, you know that I smile a lot. And, well, I can say smiling is great. Also, going to a new country to live, just going to visit anywhere, you can just find someone in the street that needs your help and just smile at them, no matter what social class they're in. In conclusion, I'm from Colombia, and Gabriel Garcia Marquez wrote a very important book, and he got a Nobel Prize for that. And one of the phrases in his book is, it was such a young world that many things that had no name. And if someone wanted to refer to something, one had to point the finger. So this is me right now, pointing the finger to apophobia and showing you that it's not just a fear that we should just, oh, okay, that's a problem, we can fix it later. No, this is happening now, and it's increasing every year, much, much more. So please, just help someone. Just help someone, smile at them, and because they're the people that need us most. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Macarena. It seems that there really is a connection between pennies and phobias. Our next speaker is George. George was born and raised in Sofia, Bulgaria. His parents are both Bulgarian. He loves cars, and he also likes playing basketball. However, his true passion is fashion. Since 2016, George has had a passion for fashion, and this has transformed into his career path, which he will pursue throughout his life. His fashion journey has led him to explore the influence and importance of Balkan heritage and modern culture. Please welcome George.
In today's world, we need fantastic stories with a wonderful ending. They just show coziness, happiness, and full warmth. And in the clicker. Thank you. In the 13th century, Marco Polo was the first connection between Eastern and European cultures. For example, trust me, you'll be very on top of fashion if you just take any tablecloth from any Balkan restaurant. For example, you can use it as a scarf on the head, as a scarf for the shoulders, as a skirt, or even just as a bag. For many designers around the world, traditions give them bio ideas, fresh ideas, a colorful therapy, and most importantly, modern configurations. This isn't really called plagiarism, because fashion houses have been doing that for ages. For example, the hippies in the 60s, they were the first ones to incorporate the colorful embroidery belts, colorful edge of pants, skirts, or other just colorful clothes. Later, in the 1990s, there was a boom of ethnic Balkan style where designers have been influenced immensely. For example, Vivienne Westwood, Givenchy, Chloé, Valentino 2014 and 15, or Alexander McQueen in 2001. The interest towards the non-culture has been famous since the beginning of the 20th century. There was an immense amount of research on high waists, clear appearance, or any very specific embroidery element. There was no actual season or an age or a specific event. They just show happiness. Most importantly, with those clothing, you look politically correct and dynamic, which is very fashionable right now. A lot of elements which are made from silk, leather, wool, aren't really replicas of clothing from Serbia, Bulgaria, Greece, or Romania. They don't really bring a nostalgic look, but actually bring a multicultural society together, shown by the Swiss Guards in Vatican, or the wonderful exhibition from the Victorian Albert Museum of Christian Dior, who's actually one of the biggest thefts of Balkan motifs. So, the constantly changing trend. For many years, traditions have been a crucial part of the fashion industry, and for many years I've been crucially interested for fashion. Every country has an evolution, and those traditions move with the evolution of a country. Not only the materials that have been used, but also it's not always about showing the newest trends or to satisfy a customer. It's about the core values of a country and the origins of that country. My passion for fashion has been since I was 14, and now 5 years have passed. Through this, I want to discover my real passion and show it out loud, because fashion is really the only way that I can express myself out loud, since I'm an introvert. I'm from Bulgaria, and here the folklore is very, very valued. Since Bulgaria is a very old country, the traditions in that country are still one of the oldest existing in the world, all the way back from the classical antiquity, all the way now to the 21st century. In Bulgaria, the traditional clothing, in the Balkan countries, the traditional clothing is very similar. They have very specific motifs, ornaments, and meanings. But actually in Bulgaria, they have very deep meanings, and mesh just implementing it. The female costumes are much more colorful and bloomy than the male ones. As much as the Balkans change throughout time, so do the beliefs, legends, and interpretations also change. In the beginning, the clothing only represented the fertile farmlands, like this, which is the Sukman dress. This is the most widespread female clothing in Bulgaria. In Bulgaria, most of the clothing is the same because it shares most of its characteristics. Somewhere it can be found sleeveless depending on the weather in the region, or long sleeves like here. In the future, the meaning of clothes became much more richer than just crops. The first example is the bridal costume from the Diplo, which is from the Rhodope Mountains. It's from the early 18th century. You can see the amazing crown, the lots of flowers, which represents bloom, and also the immense amount of coins. The next example is is a very interesting bridal costume from the Prilep region in Macedonia, which is from the early 19th century. As you can see, there's flowers, coins, buckles with clips, and the crown, which represents prosperity in life. Most importantly is the belt, which has survived in almost all the history of the Balkan cultures. So, leaving the old clothes aside, I'll travel to the future where designers have used the old principle and designs and created an immense amount of wonderful and amazing pieces, I would say. The first example is from the 2009 John Galliano ready-to-wear collection, where the designer has been inspired by the Russian Balkan culture. Here, as you can see, looking back, that's how he translates the pioneer-hipped headdresses, full-skirt coats, balloon-sleeve blouses, and palm-treed cross-laced boots. Every fashion designer interprets the old clothing into a different way. They give them new perspective. For example, shown by Vivienne Westwood. She uses the Turkish harem pants, which show the Western cultures. In her example, the pants show a very classy and casual look. Also, Dior, he uses a very interesting way of interpreting the flowers on the head, which represent the beauty of woman in general and bloom. Also, going back to Galliano, he uses the Slavic brides to incorporate a very traditional look in understanding the world. Finally, Dolce & Gabbana. They interpret their clothing in a very interesting Russian way. They were immensely incorporated from the Russian sign of culture, the babushka and matryoshka. Also, Tao. This is a very interesting brand, which uses very interesting embroidered elements. I haven't displayed because this is a brand which I can't really explain because it's not really famous in the world. It's actually very famous in Bulgaria. So, in conclusion, through my own experience, I've immensely been intrigued from fashion, and fashion has been incorporated in my DNA. I have one last question to you. Do you think traditions are really time traveling? Thank you.
Thank you, George. Who knew that Balkan traditions were so present in today's fashion? Now we have another video to show you. As you might know, there have been numerous protests regarding climate change in recent months, and they were all orchestrated by students. All this was started by one girl, Greta Thunberg. We'd like to share her TED Talk with you, and especially today, around the idea of empowering change in a shifting world. And we want to let her describe how black and white the situation with climate change really is and how we should proceed to solve this global crisis. So ladies and gentlemen, let's enjoy this disarming case to act right now on climate change.
When I was about 8 years old, I first heard about something called climate change or global warming. Apparently that was something humans had created by our way of living. I was told to turn off the lights to save energy and to recycle paper to save resources. I remember thinking that it was very strange that humans, who are an animal species among others, could be capable of changing the Earth's climate. Because if we were, and if it was really happening, we wouldn't be talking about anything else. As soon as you turn on the TV, everything would be about that. Headlines, radio, newspapers. You would never read or hear about anything else. As if there was a world war going on. But no one ever talked about it. If burning fossil fuels was so bad that it threatened our very existence, how could we just continue like before? Why were there no restrictions? Why wasn't it made illegal? To me, that did not add up. It was too unreal. So when I was 11, I became ill. I fell into depression. I stopped talking and I stopped eating. In 2 months, I lost about 10 kilos of weight. Later on, I was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, OCD, and selective mutism. That basically means I only speak when I think it's necessary. Now was one of those moments. For those of us who are on the spectrum, almost everything is black or white. We aren't very good at lying, and we usually don't enjoy participating in the social game that the rest of you seem so fond of. I think in many ways that we autistic are the normal ones, and the rest of the people are pretty strange. Especially when it comes to the sustainability crisis, where everyone keeps saying that climate change is an existential threat and the most important issue of all, and yet they just carry on like before. I don't understand that, because if the emissions have to stop, then we must stop the emissions. To me, that is black or white. There are no grey areas when it comes to survival. Either we go on as our civilization or we don't. We have to change. Rich countries like Sweden need to start reducing emissions by at least 15% every year. And that is so that we can stay below a 2-degree warming target. Yet, as the IPCC have recently demonstrated, aiming instead for 1.5 degrees Celsius would significantly reduce the climate impacts. But we can only imagine what that means for reducing emissions. You would think the media and every one of our leaders would be talking about nothing else, but they never even mention it. Nor does anyone ever mention the greenhouse gases already locked in the system, nor that air pollution is hiding a warming, so that when we stop burning fossil fuels, we already have an extra level of warming, perhaps as high as 0.5 to 1.1 degrees Celsius. Furthermore, does hardly anyone speak about the fact that we are in the midst of the 6th mass extinction, with up to 200 species going extinct every single day. That the extinction rate is today between 1,000 and 10,000 times higher than what is seen as normal. Nor does hardly anyone ever speak about the aspect of equity or climate justice, clearly stated everywhere in the Paris Agreement, which is absolutely necessary to make it work on a global scale. That means that rich countries need to get down to 0 emissions within 6 to 12 years with today's emission speed. And that is so that people in poorer countries can have a chance to heighten their standard of living by building some of the infrastructure that we have already built, such as roads, schools, hospitals, clean drinking water, electricity, and so on. Because how can we expect countries like India or Nigeria to care about the climate crisis if we, who already have everything, don't care even a second about it or our actual commitments to the Paris Agreement? So, why are we not reducing our emissions? Why are they in fact still increasing? Are we knowingly causing a mass extinction? Are we evil? No, of course not. People keep doing what they do because the vast majority doesn't have a clue about the actual consequences of our everyday life. And they don't know the rapid changes required. We all think we know, and we all think everybody knows, but we don't. Because how could we? If there really was a crisis, and if this crisis was caused by our emissions, you would at least see some signs. Not just flooded cities, tens of thousands of dead people, and whole nations leveled to piles of torn down buildings. You would see some restrictions. But no, and no one talks about it. There are no emergency meetings, no headlines, no breaking news. No one is acting as if we were in a crisis. Even most climate scientists or green politicians keep on flying around the world, eating meat and dairy. If I live to be 100, I will be alive in the year 2103. When you think about the future today, you don't think beyond the year 2050. By then, I will, in the best case, not even have lived half of my life. What happens next? The year 2078, I will celebrate my 75th birthday. If I have children or grandchildren, maybe they will spend that day with me. Maybe they will ask me about you, the people who were around back in 2018. Maybe they will ask why you didn't do anything while there still was time to act. What we do or don't do right now will affect my entire life and the lives of my children and grandchildren. What we do or don't do right now, me and my generation can't undo in the future. So when school started in August this year, I decided that this was enough. I sat myself down on the ground outside the Swedish Parliament. I school striked for the climate. Some people say that I should be in school instead. Some people say that I should study to become a climate scientist so that I can solve the climate crisis. But the climate crisis has already been solved. We already have all the facts and solutions. All we have to do is to wake up and change. And why should I be studying for a future that soon will be no more, when no one is doing anything whatsoever to save that future? And what is the point of learning facts within the school system, when the most important facts given by the finest science of that same school system clearly means nothing to our politicians and our society? Some people say that Sweden is just a small country and that it doesn't matter what we do. But I think that if a few children can get headlines all over the world just by not going to school for a few weeks, imagine what we could all do together if we wanted to. Now we're almost at the end of my talk. And this is where people usually start talking about hope. Solar panels, wind power, circular economy, and so on. But I'm not going to do that. We've had 30 years of pep talking and selling positive ideas. And I'm sorry, but it doesn't work. Because if it would have, the emissions would have gone down by now. They haven't. And yes, we do need hope. Of course we do. But the one thing we need more than hope is action. Once we start to act, hope is everywhere. So instead of looking for hope, look for action. Then, and only then, hope will come. Today, we use 100 million barrels of oil every single day. There are no politics to change that. There are no rules to keep that oil in the ground. So we can't save the world by playing by the rules. Because the rules have to be changed. Everything needs to change. And it has to start today. Thank you.
Change needs to start today. Greta's statement could not have fit in better with our theme for this year's conference, empowering change in a shifting world. As many of our teachers have told us in school, if we do not resolve climate change, the rest doesn't matter. It is the most detrimental problem that is facing society. That is why we need to change our mentalities, starting today. Speaking of changing mentalities, our next speaker is Aytek. Aytek was born in Istanbul, Turkey, and both of his parents are Turkish. He moved to Bulgaria in the summer of 2015. He speaks English, Turkish, a bit of Spanish, and is currently learning both Bulgarian and Italian. He is into sports, art, and music, and when he grows up, he would like to study psychology, architecture, or biology. As a kid, Aytek heard lots of stereotypical thoughts and began thinking they were normal. However, as he grew up, he started understanding the concept of stereotypes a bit better. And now, Aytek disagrees with most stereotypes. His talk focuses on how stereotypes can be bad and discusses how they are formed, even while we are still children. Please welcome Aytek.
And this thought that carrots are better for rabbits
carrots based off of what we have seen or know. Now, okay. What do rabbits like to eat? Maybe when I asked you this question, most of the people in this room thought it would be carrots, no? The truth is, most rabbits prefer other vegetables over carrots. And this thought that carrots are better for rabbits even causes people to harm their rabbits by feeding them the wrong foods. Carrots can sometimes harm rabbit teeth. So why did most of us automatically think of carrots? This is a stereotypical thought. It's a stereotype that we think all rabbits eat carrots based off what we have seen or know. You see, we use cognitive shortcuts and come to fast conclusions. These cognitive shortcuts are called heuristics. Heuristics actually help us a lot in our everyday lives. They help us make fast, quick, and mostly correct decisions. There are many different types of heuristics, so not all are related to stereotypes. And although heuristics can be great, they can also be bad. The representative heuristic takes something you've seen once or twice and makes you expect it to happen again. So let's go back to our carrot example. In this example, one of the sources was the cartoon Looney Tunes. Bugs Bunny is a character in this cartoon. This bunny constantly eats carrots. So when kids see this multiple times, they start thinking that it's true and that it applies to all rabbits. We're exposed to lots of information through media. Therefore, most of the stereotypical thoughts we have today are also strengthened by media. I also had stereotypical thoughts. Back in the day, when I was younger, I formed a big stereotype based on males and females. My mom stopped working outside when she had me and my sister, and she took care of us. So when I saw her every day after school at home, it made me think she never worked, even though she did. I just never associated her with working because it would either be when I was at school or after my sister and I went to bed. My dad also worked, but he worked full time. He would wake up, eat, go to work, eat, come back, eat, and finally sleep. As you can see, my father enjoys eating quite a bit. Well, I can't blame him. So do I. The point is, my father was outside the house more than my mother. Therefore, I associated him with working outside. This was my experience. Females take care of the kids at home. Males, on the other hand, go to work outside. Because of the representative heuristic tool in my brain, whenever I saw a family, I would see it through my own lens, and I unknowingly formed a stereotype. Then one day, at the end of school, my friend's dad came to pick him up. And the next day, the same thing happened. And the next, and the next, and, you guessed it, the next day. So I went up to my friend and I asked him, "How come your dad isn't at work?" And the response I got was, "What do you mean? My dad doesn't even go to work." It was hard, but I realized that not every family was the same. And now that my knowledge on this topic had changed, I no longer had this stereotypical thought. Moms can work, dads can work. Moms can stay at home, dads can stay at home. Forming this initial stereotype about the roles of women and men was wrong. So here's my second question. What do you think is the most common attribute of a donkey? So most of you probably thought a donkey is a stubborn, lazy, or dumb creature. In fact, that's quite wrong. Donkeys have very good memory. Whenever a donkey is exposed to any situation which in their mind associates with danger, as a protection instinct and for its safety, sometimes it stops moving. The real reason for this is when a donkey senses danger, it freezes and assesses the situation. It wouldn't move until it figures out what move would be the safest. But because some people think it's being stubborn, lazy, or dumb, they might harm it just to make it move, instead of understanding, gaining its confidence, and leading it by demonstrating there is no danger. With similar negative stereotypes and prejudice in a human's life, the situation is in fact the same. Once a person faces prejudice, they are more likely to exhibit a lack of self-control. It's harder for them to make good and rational decisions. They are more likely to eat unhealthy foods. And yeah, that shows how individuals are affected by negative stereotypes. So another thing stereotypes can cause is senseless or wrong relationships. You might become friends with not a great person or a liar just because you thought they would be a good person. Maybe the exact opposite. You might not become friends with this amazing person just because you had a negative stereotypical thought about them. If we form stereotypical thoughts when we are younger, it will be hard to get rid of them in the future. Therefore, in my opinion, schools should play a positive role in this and prevent stereotypical thinking at a young age. Not only should teachers treat students equally, but students should treat other students equally. Now that you know how heuristics can affect most of our decisions and stereotypes, instead of using shortcuts that ignore reality, try it the hard way. Think it through. Just because one person in this group of people does something doesn't mean all will do the same. We are all different in a good way, but we can only find the positive differences in people if we start on a blank page. Thank you.
Thank you again to iTech. It is indeed quite important to keep an open mind about the world. Next up, we have Vesta. She was born and raised in Sofia, and she's fluent in Bulgarian, Russian, and English, and she's currently studying Spanish and Italian. She's quite interested in the psychology of happiness and the reason why people are depressed nowadays. In the angle of individuality, she will be examining the thinking processing behind choosing and having our idols and the key to having a happier life. So let's give a round of applause to Vesta.
Today, I'm going to talk to you about our lives. But first, let's talk about someone else's life. Arguably, he's one of the best basketball players of all time. He has 6 NBA Finals Most Valuable Player awards, 6 gold medals, 2 of which are from the Olympics, 10 All-NBA First Team designations, 9 All-Defensive First Team honors, and, well, I think you got the idea. But even he had his downfalls. His name is Michael Jordan. He has a famous quote which tells only a small part of the path that he went through in order to succeed. It states, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I failed over and over and over again in my life. That is why I succeed." With his billions of dollars, popularity, fans, fascinating car collection, and basically his whole life, Michael Jordan makes some people dream to be him and live his life. But no one dreams about the amount of effort that he has put in. And most importantly, the majority does not understand that these particular dreams are impossible. Let me tell you a story about a boy who is very interested in basketball and who one day goes to his father and tells him, "Dad, I want to succeed in life. I want to be Michael Jordan." At this point, the father does not know what to do. He thinks a bit and then responds with the following: "Unfortunately, son, I cannot tell you how to become Michael Jordan, or, as you say, how to succeed in life, because I just don't know. But let me tell you the following parable. Very long ago, there was a ruler who had a huge and astonishing garden, where he really liked to spend most of his time. One day, he went to his garden for his usual walk when he was very badly surprised. I may even say he was terrified. All of his flowers and trees were withering. "What's going on?" the king was asking while walking around. The oak was the first one to respond and said that she was dying because she wanted to be as tall as the fir tree, but she couldn't. In turn, the fir exclaimed that she was so unlucky that she couldn't produce the sweet grapes that the vine could. I would like to tell you the vine wasn't happy as well. She started crying because she wasn't as beautiful as the lily, which was so envious of the oak tree because it was strong and powerful. The poor king was walking along the alleys of his dying garden, not knowing what to do. Then, suddenly, he saw a very small flower with vivid colors and pleasant scent. "What about you?" exclaimed the king. "How is it that you are alive and all of the others are dying?" "I, your majesty, am Frisia. I bloom because I don't try. Well, and I don't want to be someone else," said the flower wisely. And this is what happens every single day. Think about it. Do you want to be one of the dying flowers, or you want to bloom like the little Frisia? I assume it's the second choice. What the father wanted to tell his son is that if he tries to be a different person, he most likely will not succeed, but will depress himself and will be awfully disappointed because whatever he does, he will not be able to become Michael Jordan. Now, this does not mean that he lacks the talent or the passion for basketball. It just means that he's a different person who should follow his own life path. And this is what we should understand and remind ourselves again and again every single day. As people who live in the 21st century, we are constantly surrounded by all sorts of ratings and classifications of the richest people in the world, of the most beautiful girls or boys, of the most successful, most wanted, and respected personas. Honestly, we shouldn't be surprised that most of us tend to dream to be a different person. While we are being so absorbed by other people's looks and achievements, though, we forget the most important part: our own individual identity. We tend to forget that there is no other person like us in this world. And unfortunately, we usually mislead ourselves and let depression swallow us up and make us give up on our dreams and passions. I personally strongly believe that the simple fact that most people don't believe in themselves and they're not confident enough is the exact reason why most of us don't achieve the so desired happiness and success. At this point, you may ask me, well, what am I supposed to do when I just can't achieve the success of Michael Jordan or some other famous person? And here's my answer. The cure is right in front of us. It's right in front of you, and it has always been there. Perspective is the way we look at ourselves and our self-belief, whether we know our true value and how special we are, or we only respect other people and their talents and achievements. Now, saying that, I don't mean that we should only concentrate on ourselves. If I did say that, I would be entirely wrong. We do need to pay attention to other people and learn from them. Here is an inspirational quotation. We all need someone who inspires us to do better than we know how. Although these words are anonymous, they are full of wisdom and thought. Professors of psychology Todd Thrash and Andrew Elliott support this quote by noting in the Harvard Business Review that the heights of human motivation spring from the beauty and goodness that precede us and awaken us for better possibilities. Throughout our lives, all of us meet people who inspire us in a certain way. Be it the way they dribble the basketball, the number of languages they speak, or even the way they talk to their dog. Those people may change our lives by inspiring us to try something new, by introducing us to new perspectives, and by motivating us to follow our dreams and succeed. I personally have idols who helped me and inspired me to become better. When I was in a middle school, I used to imagine that I was Hermione Granger, that very smart girl who had the enthusiasm to follow her academic goals. And I still kind of believe that this is what gave me the energy to juggle with everything that I had to do at that point, and all of my extra classes. To tell you a secret, I still believe Hermione helps me sometimes. So it turns out that other people may help us become better, be they real or characters from a book, or a movie, could be. But what is wrong with the statement, I want to be Michael Jordan then? Looking at what I've just said, we could say that wanting to be like the great basketball player will be beneficial. But there is a difference between being inspired by Michael Jordan and actually wanting to be him. In the first case, we are motivated to build upon what we already have, develop our talents and abilities, explore possibilities, and even go beyond the limits and become the inspiration for other people. While in the second case, we are only concentrated on the idea that we want to be Michael Jordan. We want to be him, which, unlike the situation in the first case, is impossible. Because, as I already said, we are different. Setting impossible goals, now, not goals that are extremely hard to fulfill, but goals that just cannot be achieved, like being a different person, for example, affects us very badly as we try, and then we simply give up, disregarding everything that we have accomplished so far. That is why, ladies and gentlemen, you're the only ones who can determine whether you're going to be one of the happy and successful people or one of those drowning in a sea of grief. Just like the little boy, all of you have idols and people you would want to be. But remember one thing, you are blessed to be who you are, and no one could be you, nor you could be someone else. Don't make the mistake that the flowers from the parable made. Be the beautiful Frisia. Be yourself. Believe in yourself. Be proud of who you are, and you're going to bloom. That is why I implore you not to waste even a second in regretting that you're not someone you would want to be, but rather use the precious minutes to be the best version of yourselves and to fulfill your dreams and goals. And don't forget that it's never too late to be what you might have been. Thank you.
Thank you, Vesta, for reminding us the importance of being our own individual selves, because only then can we create change in our world, hopefully moving it in a positive direction. Our final speaker today is Demeter. You saw him perform earlier today, and he is also known by his stage name, Fling. He is from Bulgaria and has graduated business management at Coventry University in the UK. He started breakdancing in 2008, although it has always been a passion of his, and now is a founding member of the hip-hop dance crew, Footprints. Today, he will talk to us about the importance of discipline and passion in hip-hop culture and breakdancing, and how he grew up through art, after which he and his crew will give us one final performance. Please welcome Demeter.
Okay. That was it, thank you. No, I'm just joking. Right, first. Okay, that's better. I would like you to applause once more for those amazing artists and performers. Really, they did great. So, I won't waste too much time today, so I just want to break down the things a little bit, which means that I will freestyle. What does that mean? I have everything here from my experience during martial arts and breakdancing, but I don't want to talk too much about that. How I will freestyle today, based on everything I heard, which was really spectacular, and this is why I would like to break it down. I will start with a question. How many times did you watch like a motivational video, and after that you were like, oh man, I'm getting into this, and after 2 hours you're back into the same pattern? Yeah? Oh my. Yeah, it happened to me as well. So, how are we going like to proceed with this? Tell me now, from everything you heard today, it was really like based on formulas, and everything was really, really, really intense, right? So much information. So now, when you go out, are you going to start like collecting bottles, not using plastic bags, eating healthy, everything? Will you do that? Be honest. No, right? So break it down. Break it down really, really simple. For an example, an engine breaks. I need to fix the engine. All right, I take the car, the mechanic does it, I get it done straight away. Bam. That's it. But how it's done? You need to break down the whole thing. You remove parts, you dig inside, you research exactly how they did to present all this information. So you need to do the same thing now. You need to go back to your lifestyle and be like, okay, how to break it down, and being an artist and being like personal, being together with my own self. How is it going to happen? Did you ever ask this question? Like alone, in front of the mirror. How is it going to happen? Break it down. For an example, you want to start eating healthy. You saw how beneficial it could be. Okay, connect it with the music. Research some good music and be like, yeah, I'm going to play this new song and I'm going to go and cut some vegetables. Then, okay, I'm going to be polite. I'm going to take all those vegetables and I'm going to go and share it with somebody else, and we will be healthy together, right? You will break it down to simple things. Be happy, enjoy, and you will have the same pattern, but at the same time, it will be fun. So you will be able to do this on a regular basis, which means that it will be never boring, right? Because if you watch the guys on the videos, they're like, yeah, do this, train hard, okay, push, push. Yeah, but they started from A, right? You see the end of the alphabet. You see like what happened after 10 years or 15 years of practice. And it's really easy to say, go do this. But how are we gonna like do it? You need to start from A. How do we learn like to talk, to speak, to dance, whatever? We start from A, right? We break it down. So this is something really simple that I want you to think about when you go out from here. Like, it doesn't matter if it's dance or whatever. You can be artists on your own. You can be artists in stretching, for an example. If you want to be flexible, start from A. You go, you put your shoes on, you tie them up, but don't do it like this. Stretch. Life hack. Simple. It's an A, right? The beginning of the alphabet. Same thing. You go, you open the fridge. What should I get? Start from something simple. Get it, then be like, this is not really tasty, but flip it. If it's not tasty, I'm gonna add another vegetable, and it's gonna be better, right? Then you're thinking, okay, what do I need next? good music. All right, they're repeating everything over and over. So I'll just go, I'll put I don't know, jazz for an example, scroll the playlist, click it on, and you have it. It starts already. Yeah? Explore. It's simple. It's really, really simple. The second thing I want to add to this breakdown is being consistent with all this. To be consistent doesn't mean that you need to do the same exact routine every single day. You can be consistent but by making it fun, by adding art form to the whole thing, by being artistic and by being happy from the whole thing. Because when you're free and you don't look of all those trends and you feel like really relaxed, you actually have this thing. You're being artistic, you're being yourself, because everyone is an artist, because we are all different. This means that we're all artists. To be able to walk, we don't walk the same way. We all walk with a flavor, with a nice dance step, for an example. Everyone has it inside. Just let it free. But to be able to do it again, we need to break down those parts. This makes it really, really fun in the same time. And as you saw on the presentations, even the guest lecturers that we watched, they flip the things around. Now we have too much info, so we start from the whole thing, but we need to flip it and start from A. Flip it, just look around, research, talk to people, be polite the same way, learn from them. I'm a student at the moment. We are all students. I need to thank you all for this, because now when I talk in front of you, I'm actually reminding myself what I need to do. So I'm still student. I'm still teaching myself. So now when I go out, I'll be even more motivated to do what I'm telling you to do as well. So this is the thing, like all those things that we like listened and talked about, they're all connected. They're all connected, and we just need to like see the small details, right? As we talked in the beginning. So when we do our fresh and we go and share it with somebody, we don't watch TV, we don't watch our phones, we leave them there, and we watch the blue sky, and we just share the moment. It's all connected, and it's about time, right? We don't have time, but look how many things can be done in this particular time frame. For an example, you have half an hour, but in this half an hour you can do so many things. You can like stretch your leg really quick, bam, yeah, 10 seconds while I'm talking, yeah, I'm stretching, I'm warming up because I have to dance in a bit, yeah? So I'm talking, but I'm not losing time, right? Yeah, I'm losing time only if I think I'm losing time. For an example, we are always saying, yeah, we don't have time, or time is passing so fast. But go back and choose only one memory, only one, and try to remember it fully. Let's say one day, and not even 24 hours, 12 hours. Remember the whole 12 hours. Can you do that? You will see how much time we actually have while living. How many things we don't see, how many things passed through us those 12 hours. And this is just like 12 hours. I'm 25. I already feel like, man, I'm perfect. I lived so much, I have so many memories. If I sit now and I choose only one from the hard disk, oh, great. I can sit all day and check every detail inside and stretch and train. So this is why you need to be consistent and make it fun. Make it fun all the time. Share it. Say, yo, I did it this way today. I wanted to practice my song, but I did it under the shower. I was showering and I was practicing my song, 2-in-1. Then I brushed my teeth, it didn't work, but okay, I tried. I tried to do 3-in-1, right? I tried, but yeah. So yeah, I don't want to waste any of your time. I just wanted to like make the whole mentality change a bit. So please think of this. Break down things, make them really simple. As the one last thing, as the girl said, we want to stop pollution and all those things. We finally start doing stuff with like bottles and plastic bags, but it's still a good sign because it's breaking it down, right? And now each one of you needs to break it down and start doing it. And these are mini A's, then they become mini B's, mini C's, and it's a whole alphabet at the end. But we need to start from the bottom. Don't rush. Take your time. Be patient, be happy, live every moment, do strange things. Don't be afraid of doing strange things. Share it with others. And it's all positive emotions. That's it. Now, I will introduce 3 of my students. Big girl Gaps, big girl Sandra, and B-boy Sven. And now, finally, my crewmate, Steady, which is a bonus for the end. All right? Enjoy and have fun.
A huge thank you to Demeter and his inspiring talk, and to the whole crew for the captivating performance. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we have concluded with our talks for the day. Before we each go our separate ways, however, we'd like to give a few final thank yous. First of all, we'd like to thank our sponsors, the PT organization and Sunny Mirror Chocolate House. Thank you very much.
We would also like to thank our school administration for their continuous support in the organization of this event, with providing the venue and all the necessary materials that we needed. Thank you. We would also like to thank the cafeteria staff who provided the amazing lunch and finger foods that you had outside, and our filming crew who have been filming professionally all day and have set up a live stream for everyone who couldn't be here at the event.
Thank you. Finally, we'd like to thank our TEDx organizing team of teachers and students who have been working extremely hard behind the scenes during the past 6 months. They have been working to prepare the speakers for the event, to develop their talks, help them make them their best possible talks. So let's applaud them here on stage. Thank you so much for being with us and helping us make this event possible. Now, we would like to give our teachers a little token of appreciation for being with us and supporting us through this event, because it was very hard to do it just by ourselves. If it wasn't for the teachers, we couldn't have done it. We also want to say a shout out to the crew up there who couldn't sprint fast enough downstairs. Thank you very much for managing the lights and the sound system. And we would like to give a final very, very big and very special thank you to our main staff organizers, Ms. Angela Asset and Ms. Svetla Stoyanova, for making sure that this event runs smoothly, for organizing all the logistics. Thank you very, very, very much.
And truly, the final round of applause should go to our speakers and guest performers for today. They have done an amazing, a phenomenal job presenting for you all today, and it was a great culmination for all of their hard work. Great job, everyone. With that, we have reached the end of our program. We would like to thank you all once again for showing up today, and we hope that you walk away from today's event with some great ideas about how we can create change in our world. Don't forget to keep the conversations going on all of our social medias account and let us know what you think. Thank you once again for coming, and we hope to see you again next year.
Before you guys get out of turn this on. I'm going to have to use yours if not. I'll just take this. I'll take this one. So I just wanted to take a minute to recognize these amazing 7 leaders who have been essential in getting to make sure that this event is a part of our school. Their passion for making sure that it was going to continue included running all the TED meetings, organizing this event with technical, writing scripts, creating the schedule, and supporting the speakers as well. They've done a phenomenal job, so thank you for coming out and supporting them, because they are an amazing 7. The 7 of you, come on up here. A group of 7 individuals with Alex up there as well. So thank you so much for supporting them and supporting these speakers, because I don't know about you, but I'm so happy to know that these young people and the speakers are going to be the ones that are affecting change. And what is our theme? They're going to be empowering change in our shifting world. So thank you, guys.
Okay, now we've reached the end of our program. Once again, thank you all so much for coming out and supporting our speakers. That was the most important thing. Congratulations, guys, again for a great job, and we hope you have a nice afternoon.
Thank you. Goodbye.